Oh, I've got starting soon. Oh, now I swapped that over, that starting soon. It's the wrong trailer for this video. I swapped it over for some clinics I was doing, and I've just realised that was the Dagobah one. And it should have been the Port Dinorwic one with all the Slate stuff. I'm ever so sorry, folks. Anyway, welcome to the live stream. That was exciting. And welcome to everybody. I've seen loads and loads of people arriving, and I'm sorry, about halfway through I lose the ability to say welcome to everybody because I can't type fast enough. So welcome if you're here. I know there are people from all over the world. I've seen Morocco go past, and I am sure there are loads and loads of other countries represented. So thank you for turning up now. And you know, I sit here, I can smell something really weird, and I've just realised it's my bin bags. I've got my builders coming tomorrow to do the new workshop, which I ripped out the layout to put in, and I've covered some of the dioramas with plastic bags, and they've got a really odd smell. So if I'm like all evening, you know what it is. So anyway, welcome people, and if you haven't filled out the poll at the top, it's just something I'm doing at the moment, and I'll talk quite a bit about this. It's an interesting one. My YouTube channel tanked last month. I had 100 new subscribers. I put up what I thought was a beautiful looking diorama. It was very 3D printed in resin, but I absolutely had a blast. Really pleased how it came out. And I was losing subscribers every day. Every single day I was losing subscribers. And I did that for about a week. And then suddenly now it's back to normal, and I'm gaining about 500 subscribers a month, which has been normal for me over the last year. And I was just like, this is really weird. I don't know if it was a YouTube thing or something else. So it kicked off. So we're going to talk about Slate and Grout and Port Dinorwic and railways and all that good stuff. But it kicked off a dichotomy I've got in my channel that I wanted to discuss with you guys. And I've already asked my patrons and YouTube channel members, and they have very different votes depending on where they support me. So I thought it'd be interesting to see what you guys on the live stream, because you're obviously very keen because you've turned up live, see what you think. But first of all, welcome to everybody. And I have to thank Digger, Timber and Norm, who are my moderators. If you get out of line, they're gonna dump you so fast you won't know what you said. They'll just delete your comment, to be honest. If a bot comes in and offers you sexy chat lines, they'll get rid of that too. And I couldn't do it without them. So thank you ever so much for all of your hard work. And so I'm just gonna run down a little bit of chat. And first of all, start off with Andy. So Andy messaged me earlier and said, why aren't you doing any model railways on your channel? And I thought, that's weird. I actually have more hours of model railway content on my channel than anything else, because I do 2 hours a month on a live stream talking about model railways, which I've been doing since April. And I do maybe 40, 50 minutes of other stuff. So it was quite interesting that he said that. And he said, oh, I've not even seen your live streams. You know, other people say, oh, we've been subscribed for years and we've never noticed the live streams. And I put the model railway on the live stream because I felt it needed more discussion. YouTube is almost set up as an entertainment channel. You tune on to be entertained. And if you want it to be your career, which this has kind of been for a while, then you need it to have enough people following you. And I listen to podcasts, model railway podcasts, and they'll often open with you're a really highly successful YouTuber. You've got 35,000 subscribers. And brilliant number, I'm not dissing the number, but I remember chatting to Mecklin of Sweden, who had over 100,000 subscribers, and he's going, it's not enough. The views on 100,000 subscribers are just not enough to do anything with to make this a living. And if you look at any modeler, diorama, model railway, whatever it is, if they're doing YouTube as a living, they've got a side hustle. They're trying to sell you something else. Because you can't just make enough money off YouTube. It's all about the other stuff you do as well. Whether that's sponsorship, whether it's products you sell, there's just so much other stuff. And this is a watershed week for me, so it's been on my mind quite a lot. So let's get there in a sec, but let's go look at chat. So Andy, I definitely put the poll up there because I find it interesting. The majority of my early subscribers are model railways, but I haven't done a lot of model railways on my channel for 2 years. And in that time, the majority of my subscribers joined. So did the majority of my subscribers that joined really post-lockdown and me going full-time join to do model railways, or join because of the stuff I've been doing since then? And that is, I think, what has been quite interesting. And I think the poll is showing that I always wanted this to be a scenery channel, and I think I've drifted off that a bit because I do a lot of 3D printing, which I absolutely adore. But it's been interesting that my top videos have all been sci-fi. They've all been Star Wars ones because it brings with it a certain dynamic, and they're the ones that, you know, reliably year in, year out give me some money. The top scenery ones are I made a wet little mini wet diorama, rain, it was like a pharmacy and stuff, and my Lake District one, which is very grassy. They're my top scenery ones, and how to make static grass look amazing. But other than that, most of my videos don't really turn much of a profit, if any, if you were to put the costs in. So let's see, so that was Andy. We'll talk more about it in a minute. But yes, it was a good thing that you said it earlier. It got me thinking a lot. Aidan, thank you, Kathy. We learn a great deal from you, and your enthusiasm is infectious. Oh, thank you. I've struggled to be enthusiastic sometimes midway through a build when everything's going wrong, so I'm glad that the enthusiasm comes across. No matter how much I dislike being a full-time YouTuber, because I miss people. That's the main reason I don't like it. I miss the interaction with people more than anything. However, and I dislike video editing, to be honest. However much I dislike that, I will still sit down and model in my spare time. It's still what I love doing. Andy, also known as Rudolph Hessiansack. Interesting name. We'll call you Andy because, you know, it's your first one. Wish I could show you a pic of all my railway. It needs something more, but I don't know what. Look me up on Instagram or Facebook and drop me a line there if you want, because you can't DM on YouTube. But if you look up my name spelt the way here, I'm the only one on Instagram or YouTube like that, so you'll find it easy enough. So welcome Polite and Peter and Samuel. Oh, Samuel wants multiple options on the poll, or all of the above. Sorry, I can't actually go back and change the poll now, I don't think. I can only end it. So it's interesting. Yeah, sorry. Tim said he picked scenery techniques. It was the closest of all the above he could find. That's a good idea. Thanks, Tim. Welcome, Yasmina from Morocco. Excellent. Oops. And it does this. It just scrolls down randomly for fun. Right. Okay, loads of people saying hello to everybody. Hi, Tom. Alan and Sherilyn. Alan says hi from New Zealand. 8 a.m. Monday morning here. I've just done 2 clinics for the New Zealand and Australian Model Railway Club clinics, you know, for their convention. And they were 9 o'clock starting to get to 9 a.m. their time. And I did tile grout and I did water. And I recorded them. We started a bit late because of technical stuff, so I whizzed through them. But I did record them up for my patrons, my practice runs for my patrons. That's what they've been getting this week and probably the week after next. Delph is from Sweden, Delph72. Or if you spell check doesn't like it, Depth72 as it seems to change to, but Delph72. Hi Alan. Pat, hi Pat. Love my book. Oh, thank you. Must mention the book. Must sell book. Have I got it around here? Oh, I have. What? Book. Okay, that's the sales pitch done. I'm too British to sell myself that much. Anyway, there's a book. Thank you very much for mentioning it. Quite a few people, Serge, saying all of the above. Mark from Scale Mark. Hi, Mark. Thank you for all the comments you put on my stuff when I post. Thank you for that. Jordan, hello from Longbridge. Oh, that's not too far away. Norm YouTube is wacky. You said it. So Ravenson Express. I voted for model railways, but I'm also interested in my scenic techniques. Yeah, that's a cool one. Peter Edney, I love your work, but I don't like 3D printed stuff. Feels like cheating. I'm going to put a video out about this because I get comments saying 3D printing is cheating. And if you buy a kit, like a kit, any kit ever, you've cheated, because it's just the same as a 3D print. Actually, 3D prints are harder because you have to actually print it out. It doesn't just come in a nice cardboard box with instructions. Normally they don't come with that much at all. So you have to print them out. You still have to assemble them, clean them up, paint them. I actually think 3D printing is harder than buying a Walther's kit or a, whatever it is, whatever you model with, whatever kind of kit. They're easy. I do Gundam kits because they're so nice to put together and they work and the plastic's nice and the engineering works and there's no filing off loads of support marks and it doesn't quite fit, so you're fettling it. I just love them. 3D printing is not cheating, and I'm going to do a video on it because I've heard the comment a few times now, and I think it really doesn't. It's from people who don't 3D print, and Peter, you've no idea how hard 3D printing can be sometimes. You really don't. It's not cheating. But if you've bought a kit, if you've ever bought a ready-made loco, that's cheating. You just bought a ready-made loco. If you buy a kit, that's cheating. You've bought a kit. It's very easy to say it's cheating. It's whatever works for you. If you're into building kits, brilliant. Not everybody wants to scratch build every single item. And I just spent ages scratch building my OMC mecha. It looks nothing like I wanted to. I don't have the finesse in sculpting to get solid, smooth, robotic style shapes. I don't like it at all, to be honest. It's not the vision I had for it. It's a striking statue now. It's black, red, and it's going to have some gold on it eventually. It's striking, but it's not the vision I had. If I'd 3D printed that, it would have been perfectly what I wanted, because my skill level in 3D printing is higher than my skill level in sculpting with epoxy sculpt to try and get something completely smooth. And that was my fault for having a picture of what I wanted to do. So for me, 3D printing allows me to do so much more. Like today, I wanted to have a stand for my Stinger, which is a cyberpunk diorama. I'm doing a couple of things for Second Dynasty. They've got a Kickstarter coming out, so I said I'd do a hangar scene for them. So I'm going to do a hangar scene for one of their fighters. It's just a typical hangar. And I've just done this Stinger cyberpunk. And I like it because it's got filament LEDs. I'm going to finish it off tomorrow. And I 3D printed the extra bits, and I looked at it and I just thought, and I looked at my MC Griffin that was also on my desk today, and I just thought, I did that. It took me 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes maybe to model it. It took 40 minutes to print it. It'll work. It's done. If I'd had to do that out of bits of plastic and fiddle it, I'd still be doing it now, and I wouldn't be as happy with it. And also I had to 3D print it because the actual Stinger's 3D printed. But it's fascinating. Anyway, that I digress, because I get that comment a lot, and I think it's an interesting one, because I don't think 3D printing is easy. If you go on any 3D print chat, you'll see how hard it is to get to be right. So there we go. Anyway, Peter, sorry, that's not having a go at you, but I just get the comment quite a lot, and I feel it's an interesting one. I'm going to do a whole video on it at some point when I'm not too worked up about my OMC Griffin, which was scratch built, which I had a real down on scratch building. And I look back and realised, I've got scratch built terrace buildings. I've got a lot of scratch built buildings. I don't have a lot of scratch built, and I've actually scratch built locos. I don't have a lot of other scratch built stuff. And I think my skill set in sculpting isn't there in real life. It is there in 3D printing. Anyway, moving on quickly before Peter goes, oh, I'm leaving, she's having a go at me. I'm not having a go at you, Peter. I just think it's an interesting discussion to have, and why people think it's cheating. Because it takes even longer sometimes to 3D print than it does to scratch build it. Not necessarily. Anyway, Jaw21, move on. Off my little hobby horse. YouTube isn't what it used to be. No, it isn't. And I think lockdown gave everybody a big boost. Thanks Digger, who says it's a pleasure to help out. He means as a mod. And Ratty Rex says, shout out to the mods for their work. Yep, definitely. Ooh. Oh, right. And it's just scrolled down again. Okay. Scenery for Bill, great. Oh, and Timber's honest to serve, thank you very much. So there's loads of people saying ads, entertained with ads every 2 minutes. I think you get more ads in the day than you do of an evening. It depends how many people are there. And a lot of people I know just buy out. I don't buy out. I don't get that many that I'm upset by it because they are very short compared to my games I play where they're 30 seconds and you can't skip them. Oh, Tamsin, thank you. That was my, Tamsin saying it was a nice reminder of my diorama projects. That was 2021, probably my year of the least amount of scenery and just general anything other than sci-fi. So bad year if you're into other things, sorry. Aurelian Studio says it's a YouTube thing with the subscribers. Other channels with live streams have been complaining about it for over a month now. Oh, that's interesting. I am so glad it's not just me. I felt it was a sign that YouTube wasn't for me. So it kind of arrived at a good time, and we'll talk about that in a second. Keep saying that, there's a lot to talk about this evening, and it's a good thing I can talk a lot. It's also my third live stream in a row, so I'm in a bit of a roll. I do agree the ads are infuriating. Yeah. Did my channel grow any differently when I was on TV, Digger asks? That's a good question. I had about 3,000 new subscribers the first weekend I was on, and it shot up then. And a lot of people still ask me about the Great Model Railway Challenge. I get that comment every week, probably, from somebody saying, is there going to be another series? So I'm guessing I did pick up a lot. But Luke Towan gave me a shout out that same weekend. So I don't know how many came across from Luke Town with his 1 million subscribers on YouTube versus how many came from the Great Model Railway Challenge. Norm, the force is strong with sci-fi geeks. Yeah, that definitely is. That's why my Star Wars ones are really good. Yeah, and Timber, it's one reason I put more sci-fi into my channel. It is more mainstream, as Timber says, and it will pull more numbers. And unfortunately, when it's your job, you need to pull the numbers. I'm not sure as a gamble it paid off, but we'll talk about that because I'm going to have to pivot again in a minute. And what I think is interesting is the keen people who were on first were all model railways on the poll. And it started off at 83%, but now it's at 40%, and scenery techniques are winning out, and sci-fi and geeks fairly steady in the middle. So that's interesting. And I think the scenery techniques are people voting for everything as well. So Jordan says, I joined when I seen you 3D printed the Dinorwic wagons. We've got a whole episode on the rolling stock to come. So yeah, we're talking quite a lot about it then. So Andy says, the thing is, you're so good at modelling scenery for railways, your inspiration for non-railway enthusiasts is drawn in. That's true. I'm going to let you into a secret. I burnt out on model railways, not because of the modelling, but because of I was director of the NMRA in America, and I burnt out the politics really of it. And then every time I went to anything with NMRA, people were always trying to get me to do things because I'm a doer. And I just needed to do a hobby. So I actually deliberately stopped doing model railways for a while. And I also burnt out doing my master model railroader. I did too much modelling with a deadline and I just stopped enjoying it. So I actually stopped model railways for a long time to try and get my enthusiasm back. But if you look at all my modelling, I've always done dioramas. I had a whole layout built, running, and then I realised it's just more of the same. I went through that in the video. I ripped out my model railway. So although people are very inspired by it, I hit a wall on it, and I'm only just getting past that wall now. And you'll see more railway coming in now as I've got over that wall, but it took a long time to get past it. Polite says, I'm far away from being able to monetize my channel. I'm not even allowed to do community posts. Bless. That's bad. I do have a community poll up. So Bill found me from another channel who does scenery modelling. Yeah. And Norm says he would have voted all the above. Scenery techniques is in front by a whisker. And I think it will carry on building because people who want to do all of them vote for that as well. So GR Railway says he wants to get into 16mm scale narrow gauge modelling of Dinorwic quarries. I have a brass kit and some wagons to do. The trouble is it takes too long for a YouTube project whilst YouTube's my job. That is the secret on a lot of these things and why I do what I do. It's got to be something I can do in a couple of weeks, actual build time. I can design it in front, but actually building that is just going to take me longer, as it's my first ever brass loco kit, than I have time to do it on YouTube. So yeah. So Kevika's first. Aye, it's Grimt North lol this evening, yeah. Oh, bless me. Mark says, I suffer from depression. You've given me enthusiasm and inspiration to do this hobby. Thank you for what you do. Oh, thank you. I always am pleased to get people into the hobby, whichever bit of the hobby that people do. Anyway, oh no, I've got 10 minutes. Look at the time. Gary likes my dioramas. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. And then people still saying my book is great. Always happy to hear that. George, does revenue from YouTube depend on views on a video and number of subscribers? Views. So YouTube, all my recent videos have gone in at 9 or 10 of 10 of the previous ones. I've been doing that for about a year. And YouTube normally says, regular viewers and subscribers of your channel are not interested in this video. And they say it every time because people just don't watch things as much as they used to. And but I'm paid on CTR or something, which is clicks per view, and it's about views. How many adverts you see. So the more adverts you see, the more money I get. And if you pay not to have the adverts, I get a share of that pot, depending how many adverts you would have sat through. So your subscribers are meaningless. You can have 1 million subscribers and still not have enough money coming in if it drops. Is that Digger causing problems again, says Curly Express. Oh, Digger's brilliant. He doesn't cause any problems. Mark says, although I'm mainly interested in railways, I also love sci-fi and dioramas. I would imagine most railway modelers have crossover interests. I think there's a problem when you get too crossed over, and I do feel like I've kind of drifted a bit on my channel. So ProHawk AVP, is that Aliens versus Predator? Anyway, he watches me for all the choices in the poll, so that's good. Well, I don't know what Dwight said, but Digger's going to keep him in order. So Norm, so now people are going on responding to my 3D printing rant. Sorry about that. I look at 3D printing as an enhancement to building models, dioramas. Yep. So a couple of people would have picked, like John said he would have picked model railways and scenery in the poll if he could. GR Railway 3D printer is cheaper. They're getting cheaper, but actually time-wise, it's definitely getting cheaper. So Timbersurf says 3D print download is the same as a kit. Design your own 3D model. It's the same as scratch building. I'm designing models at the moment. I'm doing this hangar scene, so this is the start of the hangars, and it's modular, so you can take it apart and you can perhaps sell it at some point. It's always a view that actually it's easy to sell 3D print STLs if you get into the right market, and that's very different to where I am at the moment. So yeah, we'll get there. But scratch building, yeah, I mean, if you've got to design the 3D print, I didn't even mention that earlier on my rant. If you've got to design it, I literally can spend 6 months doing some designs on and off. You know, I pick them up and put them down. Designing is not quick. You get quicker, but it is certainly not quick. Bill's remind us it's the season to collect the silver birch catgin spacer thingies that are scale leaves if you want to do maples. I walk around the park now and there's no silver birches there. But I used to walk around the road with loads of them, and I go around with plastic bags and scoop them all up. But I've got quite a lot now, so I'm probably okay. So Stephen Taylor says he's not got a 3D printer, but he'd use it if he had one. Oh, if you had one, you'd do nothing but use it. I'm going to put the movie on in the background. Oh, there we go. I go small. And I go smaller because I've not zoomed my whatever, and I'm sorry if I mask things. I think I might put myself up there. I think that's going to mask less up there. So we're starting on the movie with Ballast. And it's just Woodland Scenics brown fine ballast. I always use fine. I believe it's a better looking realistic scale in HO or OO. I know there are people that like the chunkiness of larger scales, but I like it to look fine. So I'm just literally putting it on with all the normal techniques. I put it in place. I use my thumb a lot to smooth it out, and it's going to get grass over it in most of the places. and then I just spray it with isopropyl alcohol and drip on my scenery glue. So there's nothing unusual about it. So whilst you're watching that, it's hard to get the shots on this. I would never do a model railway again with a lid on top because it makes videoing it nigh on impossible. I had to change all my angles lower to on my camera to be able to get under the lid, and then I just put myself in the way of 90% of the camera that's coming from the other angle. And it's just me in the way. You'll see it occasionally, but yeah. So Stephen Taylor says he's not got a 3D printer, but he'd use it if he had one. Oh, once you have one, you find every way to use it. Hi Renier, South Africa, very nice. I've got some friends who live there. I'm hopefully going to go and visit them at some point. Haha, Digger, you've nailed it. 3D printing is a great resource for modelling. It's not cheating, it's progress. It is an interesting one, and I think there are plenty of people who will come round to that view over time. At this point, I think it's a lack of understanding of what's involved with it. So Tim says his main annoyance about 3D printing is the expectation that everyone has one. Well, yeah, I mean, I did a lot of Shapeways at the beginning, and I've still bought quite a lot of railway models off the Shapeways marketplace. That was before I bought a printer. So you can still get hold of 3D prints even if you don't actually have one. Ooh. Right. So Muddy Marvellous says, hi Kathy from Kinver, seen your book for Christmas. Sorted. Oh, thank you very much for that. Mark says, my book is excellent. Thank you, Mark. You can come again. RTC says, well done, Kathy. Thank you. Or well said, Kathy. Mark says, you can get such satisfaction in designing a part and then 3D printing to be part of a model or diorama. Yep. No, you can. I love designing 3D print stuff. You're going to see a lot of it on the channel just because I love it so much. And that's why Timber says he designs them and he does sell them as well. Oh, Peter. So maybe his problem is that he can't afford a 3D printer, so I can't join in. It's fascinating. They are getting so much cheaper. So I don't know what everyone's positions are, and I know that money is very tight at the moment. You can get really good printers now for £200-300, but then you've still got to pay for resin and isopropyl alcohol, and there's the learning curve. And £200-300 is out the way of a lot of people. I know certainly in the UK, the cost of living is not a joke, and I certainly don't earn enough money to cover everything at the moment. But more on that in a minute. Not my lack of money, but the other options. It's an interesting one. I would still say if you want to model, you can still buy 3D prints from other people. Ballast at the other end of the layout now. You can still buy 3D prints from other people. And you can find people. Some clubs are starting to buy 3D printers. There's maker spaces where you can use them. There are ways to get hold of them where you're literally paying for just the print rather than the 3D printer. So Aidan said, did I misunderstand your start of your show? You said you posted 2 live streams on Worries per month, 2 hours of live streams. Sorry, Aidan, I obviously wasn't being clear in my diction. 2 hours. So yeah. And you know, if you want prints, this is probably a good place to ask, but Digger says Timber does some good prints, so you could always DM some of these people and ask. So Martin says, you almost have to be an engineer sometimes keeping these printers working, but the reward is great. Oh, I didn't get my brand new Prusa. It was my second FDM printer. I didn't get it to print well for a year, and I just stopped using FDM, and now I use it all the time because I've got it working. It is so hard sometimes to get these to work. It really is. But there's plenty of support out there is the only good thing I can say. Aidan, every second Sunday in the month is the live stream at the moment. Thank you, Digger. Yes, it definitely is. And I did the second Sunday because the first just seemed to be busier. So Bill says 3D printing is a fantastic resource for commercially unavailable items and scales. That's very true. I do a lot of odd stuff in mine. And Curly Express Dwight says you can get a cheap printer. I I think it is just about how much money people have. I mean, people regularly write to me and say, I can barely afford to feed myself, so, 3D printing's out. And when you're in that space, it isn't. And there are plenty of ways to do modelling that don't necessarily require 3D prints that are expensive. Oh, and Nick says that Timber doesn't just make good prints, he makes fantastic prints. And as he's one of my mods, I'm going to echo that. Yeah, Bill, I'm far too cheap to opt out and pay for YouTube. I totally understand. So Ratty says, I started watching for the 3D printing when you were doing the wagons, stayed for everything else. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the wagons are definitely going to get more or less their own video soon. They don't actually run that well at the moment. I need to kind of make them heavier, is the truth. I need to get better wheels. Serge Pratt says, Star Wars with trains and scenery combo. Boba Fett had a train. I was like, oh, I'll model that. And then Boba Fett turned out to be rubbish and nobody likes it. Oh, so Bill came over from Luke's channel. That was one. Yeah, Luke he's done a couple of shout outs. He's a great guy. We do email occasionally. Yeah, Timber, I need to be friendly. Right, let me catch up on this. I'm still just doing ballasting. Now, I know this is a model railway channel sort of live stream. Ballasting is one of those basics. I just glue it like normal. I put it in there. I'm not bothered if this is too messy because there's a lot of detritus. That's the shot with the arm. And so this is me spraying on isopropyl alcohol. Then I will spray it lightly with the scenery glue because that then beds everything down. And then I'll drip the glue on as well to get to the lower layers. My isopropyl alcohol and water is 99% isopropyl alcohol and about 1/3 of it, 2/3 water. My glue is 6th matte Mod Podge because I can't get anything else out the spray bottles, they just clog. So I put a 6th matte Mod Podge, fill it up with water, and then that's the same in the dripper bottle because I mix up a milk carton of it at a time. Matte Mod Podge because it doesn't re-wet as easily as white glue. It doesn't re-white as easily, though you can still do that if you're not careful. Oh, you just realised I was a judge on the Great Model Railway Challenge. Oh, bless you. Oh, that's cute. I mean, I don't get accosted. I was accosted in Costa by somebody who actually, and I go to the Scale Model Club in Solihull because he came up and said hello and asked me to it. And McDonald's, someone came, people would side-load to you and they would go, are you Kathy? And I'd be like, yes. It was very exciting. And then, it stopped. So I don't get that anymore, thankfully. It's kind of a bit, I'm not that much of a celebrity. So Sebastian Retail, hello from the French guy living in Spain. Oh, that must confuse people. Sorry, I'll come back in a sec, Sebastian. So this is the road. I painted it on a different video and I thought I'm not going to put painting a road on here. It's really unexciting. It's just grey acrylic paint. But I'd used Daz to make it and I just sanded it down a little. Good rocking motion there. You can see the whole layout's moving. Sanded it down till it felt smooth. And then I painted it grey. And I went over it with a tile grout and slate mix. And I mixed up a big amount of tile grout, which you'll see in a second. I always mix enough to do the whole layout. And then I use it up in smaller dioramas afterwards. So Sebastian said, I said sooner, but like all of the above, I enjoy the trains because it's something I know nothing about and nice to learn. Well, that's good to know. And I apply scenery to my DIY mini crawler courses for my 1 to 24 RC car. I do follow quite a few people who do for diecast and other types of cars, and they do some great modelling scenery dioramas for them. Samuel Beckett, don't think 3D printing isn't a cheat. It reflects and enables personal creativity. Please could you consider an idiot's guide for those who aren't really sure where to start? I am an hour about doing an idiot's guide to 3D printing because there's so much out there for 3D printing and I don't feel like an expert in it from the amount of mistakes I have. But I might do something on 3D printing for scale modelling or something which limits it down. So yeah. Tamsin, who I know from Second Dynasty, came for the scenery techniques and stayed, not a model railway person. Oh, thank you, Tamsin. Good to have you. And then Alan and Sherilyn, I enjoyed the Model Railway Challenge TV series for different ideas. I loved it. There was so much creativity on it. Amazing stuff. So this is a pot of, I think it's walnut or taupe, it's walnut probably, tile grout. And these are slate chippings. I tried a bag I got from the garden centre, but it was the wrong colour. It was purple slate and I wanted a greener slate. And this was just a bag, I have no idea. I bought on YouTube when I first started, not YouTube, what am I talking about? I bought on Amazon donkeys years ago when I first started this project, and it's a lot finer than the stuff I got, and I don't need to sieve it or anything. And I've used, you'll see in a sec, I used it at the start and didn't like it too much. I put too much on and I should have done it later. But I mixed it in here with the tile grout. So when I'm throwing on a bit of tile grout for any earthen areas, there's a little bit of slate sat in there because there's just slate dropped everywhere. And then I could just put it down in one go rather than 2 applications. And the slate gets covered in dirt and dust as well. Right, I'm way back. Oh, I'm really back, sorry. Okay, so let's whiz through some of these. Okay, so pretty much the same from Tim. He came for the scenery, stayed for the rest. Love your pics in the background, Kathy. Yeah, this is my black and white wall with hints of red. So thank you, RTC. Right on track. Found your YouTube only recently. Looking forward to seeing more of your model railway videos. Chris from Model U. Hi, Chris. We've met a few times, haven't we? Bill Forrest. 1 to 50 architectural modelling here and its associated scenery. Greenery is everywhere. Oh, that is so true. And I do need to get back to doing more greenery. I really enjoy doing it because it's not exact. Geo Railway. I found a place called PDF Models to make fantastic and truly affordable kits. That's always good to know. Kits are really good. I love kits just because you can build them and do what you like with them. So Tristan says, if I recall, I subscribed because of the animated Magna Rail cycling. That was Luke Towan. That wasn't me. I mean, that was like I put on a really, really small clip of the original creator of that back in Worley. It's one of the earliest things on my channel. And so I remember seeing them. It must have been 10, 15 years ago now. I started this channel in 2010. It's almost the first thing on there. Ever consider doing showcases of other people's modelling? If I catch up with chat, I'm going to talk about something in a minute. And then Renier says, suggestion, one thing that put me off from Model Railway how to channels is the amount of sponsored use these products from a specific supplier. Alternative ideas attracts me. Yes, and I stopped doing sponsored with specific suppliers when I really didn't have time to go back to Germany to get a product, and I had to use their products in that particular video, and I ended up prodding resin late into the night trying to get it to ripple because I didn't have the right ripple product from the supplier. I only actually get sponsorships from people whose product I already have and use, because that way I know that I'm already going to use them and I'll be happy to sponsor them. And 3D printers, I do actually get free 3D printers from names that I know. And then Timbers agrees with Renier. He built his website and a lot of his YouTube channels about choices and alternatives. Especially, I mean, I did a cheap and easy water, which just used PVA glue. Very keen to make sure people can afford things. Ooh, so you're just about getting to movie time now, and I'm still talking. Oh, Tamsin, I've just moved from eSun. I've got 4 rolls to use up. I've got 2 white ones, which are better, but I've got 2 grey. And I've got Overture. People rave about it. But yeah, I heat mine like mad, and it's got rid of most of the stringing. I've got Pressament. It's twice the price in the UK. It's £30 as opposed to £15 or £16. And I've got to say, I haven't noticed twice the quality, though I haven't painted my stinger. It's in the silver that I printed it in. It's should be out next week so you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. It's a little cyberpunk stinger that somebody had done. So it's like a 3D printed chip, and I've painted it with Gundam markers, metallic and Hobby Mio fluorescent ones. So I haven't even painted it. I've just used the finished filament look, and it does look quite cool, I'm going to admit. And so the prosuments for that. So I'm tempted to take it off and then put it on when I need it and try Overture on the Creality. DSS UK Limited just finished printing 1:24 scale washing machines for my backyard diorama, painting and adding detail now. Oh, it's a great detail. Yeah, and then Bill's talking about it, apart from Greenfields, it's all architecture. That's very true. Tim, oh, I buy 3D printed bits from all over. I'm seeing a lot of videos labelled as beginner level where presenters say, just 3D print these details, and I find that very annoying. I tend not to say what level mine are aimed at, and I would, if I was going to do that, I would probably have a video first that said basic 3D printing, which I did actually do ages ago, but I need to update it. But this is how you do basic 3D printing. So sometimes when I do washes, I'll say, oh, I've done a video on that if you want to check out how to use them. How much are the things for the printers, says Kevicus. Not quite sure. To run, I mean. Well, it depends which resin you use. And it depends whether you're doing FDM or resin. So how long is a piece of string? Depends how big your pieces are, how much you hollow them, how many mistakes you have. I probably am not the right person to ask because my 3D printers, I've normally got one running at some point. Actually, none of them are running at the moment, but I normally, at some point I have 4 running. So I go through 50, 60 pounds worth of filament a month if I'm doing a big stuff, and probably 40. So a bottle of resin is somewhere between 30 and 40 pounds, and I put an expensive resin in with a cheaper one, which makes it more durable. And that's for a litre, and you'll get a huge number of minis out of that. You won't get as many railways out, railway locos out. For filaments, dirt cheap. It's £15 or £16 a roll of Eson or Overture at the moment, which is really reasonable. So GR Railway says, I got my Creality LD, that's a filament printer, is it? For 170, and it's a bit older, but it's a great resin printer. I hear great things about Creality. I've got their Ender 3 S1 Pro, and it prints beautifully. Bill, IPA alcohol was practically unobtainium during lockdown. Yeah, I buy it 5 litres at a time, and I bought it during lockdown. It was just more expensive. So Tim says, and this is funny, for sheer ridiculousness, I saw one beginner video today where they used a laser cutter to make some add-ons. I want a laser cutter, but realistically, I don't have space for it because you have to vent externally, and B, I do struggle with the fact nobody else will have one, so it makes your videos automatically unobtainium. John, do I not get problems with mould and insect activity using dried vegetation like silver birch things? No, I just dry them on a tray till they're dry and put them in a plastic bag. But other people put them in the oven to kill off everything, which you can do. They might smell, I don't know, but people put them on a low heat in the oven to kill any bugs. Or you could freeze them, I guess, in the plastic bag, which also kills all the bugs. But generally I try and pick them up on dry days where they're already fairly dry. So Timber says, both resin and filament printing is hard. It's an uphill struggle to learn the process, let alone design your own stuff. I'm on some really good Discords for it, and it is uphill, but you've got to bear in mind, I've been doing it a long time now. So let's just talk Slate for a second. I put down in this area, I painted it. This is me painting it, I'm guessing, which, that's very exciting. I kind of lose track why that's in here. And maybe I'm gluing it. Maybe I'm painting it. Anyway, I'm putting something on with a brush. It's very exciting, this, isn't it? Oh no, that was glue. And then I put on these slate chippings that I had. This did not work. Never do this. Never do this. Just watch me do it and then just never do this. And I'll explain why. They're lumpy. They're too lumpy. And I had loads of slate piles, which you'll see right at the end of this video. They actually go on in a later video because they were 3D printed parts. And they're the slate piles. Now I could have made them by cutting up loads of bits of styrene, but it was much quicker to just pull out a 3D print. So these are some slates that I got from the garden centre, and they're very purpley, and I didn't like the colours. So I then went over with those other ones I showed you a minute ago, which are more green in colour and smaller. So this was me putting it on, and then it wasn't flat enough. It's kind of tamped into the ground in the real thing. So a tar grout and slate mix would have probably given a smoother circle. And my problem was when I put the slate loads on the slate stacks on top, I then spent ages filling them in with bits of grout and extra tar grout. It took a long time. It didn't need to. So Kaz Jones, I'm in the process of 3D printing a rake of 17 wagons. He's done all the CAD work himself and he's using 3D people for the actual printing. Brilliant. So you can get other people to print for you. I would not use, GR Railway says, I'd only stick to resin for small to medium size and detail, and I found flat parts warp really easy. I don't like to use it for anything now that's particularly dimensional. I'll generally print in FDM for dimensional stuff. But then it ends up chunkier, so this is like a conveyor wall, but I've gone up in scale to get them to work. So you end up going up in scale, which doesn't work for model railways. There are ways around getting the warping. It's about how you support them. There's a really good table flip foundry. He has a YouTube channel which tells you how to support things, and it's thousands of really, really small supports that just rip off is actually the answer. So I'm still getting my head around how to support stuff. Okay, I'm going to try and get down. Clay says, I have to say, even though it's hard to get into resin printing, I've just so enjoyed every step. I guess expectations are important initially. Yes, I started off with resin and then went to FDM, and it was hard. It was really hard to kind of get my head around FDM, having got into resin. Everything supports differently, and but it is important to understand. It's getting better. It's not yet plug and play. And I've had a discussion with one of our patrons about he wants it just to be plug and play because that's what he wants. He wants a printer that's plug and play. And I get that. I didn't start when it was plug and play, but I can understand why people would want that. This is the green smaller slate going on. It's a much better size, much better size. And I think what you learn from this is you don't get it right every time, but with scenery, I either scrape it off. I pulled off half my explosions yesterday because I didn't like them on this Stinger diorama. It's a very simple base and they were just too big. Sometimes you just have to rip stuff off or pull it off. So John says to Bill, he uses glycerine to preserve all the green materials he uses. I've done that in the past with moss. It's really a good way to just use to preserve moss. And moss is actually quite a nice thing when in scale. Accosted. I was accosted in Costa. So Russ rocking QPR. Someone's got to run. Russ rocking ORR. Sorry. I'm new to your channel this year. I've been watching your content IMR video, plus before that, you're awesome at scenery. Thank you very much. I haven't actually watched my latest MRVP ones I'm putting up for a long time, but they're probably my least favourite dioramas I've ever done. Letting you into a secret there. I did spring and autumn, and I didn't think I nailed either of them. Hi Anfield, nice to see you in chat. Morning Monique in Brisbane. And then David says there's ways to avoid warping, such as creating an inner box section. It is all about the design to avoid warping. I'm definitely going to say that. Hello Alan. John Crooks. Hi Kathy. Great to see you again. I'm thinking of the Christmas sales now to treat myself to a 3D printer, as you say. Cost of living is biting hard on everyone. It is, and it may not be the time for everybody to get it. I think eventually they will get cheaper, but it's not just that. There's the ventilation. Resin, I mean, I had headaches for 2 years, and actually I solved it, and I don't know which way it was. Whether I just decided I wasn't going to worry about YouTube anymore, stress gone. Not that easy, obviously. Whether I gave up the red wine, headache gone. Was it the red wine? And I've also been wearing a mask when I go in to clean my prints now, and I have the ventilation running a lot more. And when I'm doing the resin printing, I wonder if that was triggering some of the headaches as well. So Timber says he uses diluted Copydex as his ballast glues. It supposedly transmits less noise to the baseboard. Well, that's a fascinating one. What do you dilute Copydex with, Timber? In about 20 minutes, I'll get to that. So 5:30 5 a.m. Monique, you definitely do not sleep well. John, talking tips. Mark, is there a rubberized glue for ballast that doesn't set hard? This might stop the noise of the loco going into the baseboard. I used to use cork under everything, so I've never really worried about the ballast glue, but it's a good point. Bill Forrest says you can also steam the green material to kill any bugs. A drop of bleach prevents mould. To be honest, I mean, the stuff I've been picking up is dry, and I've just literally dried it and then put it into a plastic bag and never had a problem. Right. So Clay's got his BDI on a Saturn II 8K printer, 490 though, stiff breath in. And it's not just that. I bought at the wash and cure station under £200, but still £200. I had been printing for about 3 or 4 years by the time I bought it. So it wasn't an initial thing. You will spend a lot of money on isopropyl alcohol as well. Don't believe that water washable is as good. And what are you going to do with your water? I reuse the isopropyl alcohol. But you can't put the water down your sink. It's poisonous. You can cure it outside and then dispose of it properly. But yeah. So John says he enjoys all aspects of my channel, so you need an all of the above option on the poll. Sorry, John, I should have done it, but I can't go back and change it now. Dodgy Dioramas agrees. GR Railway, are there any model shops in Solihull? Not that I'm aware of. Hobbycraft is the only thing. So Tamsin's got a few spools of Sunloo filament to try, or let me know how that goes, Tamsin. I'm trying this Overture because somebody on a Discord, I think it was Ian and Dragon's Rest, was saying he's got it, and it's also got cardboard rolls, so it's more recyclable. Monique just woke up and joined. Kathy is currently ballasting her Port Dinorwic navigator layout. I am, yes. So, Russell Rocks, 3D printing is a separate hobby to me. I'll probably never get into it myself, and I enjoy purchasing unique items from 3Ders. I mean, that is a good thing. You can just buy the items generally from somebody else. James Pets. Oh, I do like a 009. It's a good size. It's definitely a good size. So, I'm still in the background here, putting in loads of different colours and types and piles of these are filling in the gaps. I've sprayed it with isopropyl alcohol, I've sprayed it with glue, and then I'm trying to even it out a bit. But I've shown you this to show that people love it when professional modelers like me get things wrong or change their minds, because they feel reassured. I'm like, be reassured, this entire section here was a complete disaster. Yep. Right, where have I got to? I am not catching up on this chat, am I? You're all chatting faster. So yes, so at the moment, for those who have just joined, this is my Port Dinorwic layout, and I have been putting Slate on, Slate chippings. You can buy them on Amazon, either for ballast or just find Slate chippings. I've had these for donkey's years. I actually bought some from International Models, who used to do all the tufts, the sill floor tufts. And they don't exist anymore, I don't think. I've not seen them in a long time. They were somewhere in Wales. And in my left hand on this scene, I've got a pot of tar grout, either walnut or taupe, and I've thrown in some slate. So I'm using this as earth everywhere to build up the ground levels, to put in some dust, and to put down the fact that most of the area is a sort of impacted dirt with slate pushed into it over the years as it's broken and shattered and being used. Oh, and that's Chris Lewis ringing. Wow, that'll be about my sister. So yes, there we go. Right. Rubberized glue, not used it, but a lot of people recommend copy decks. I don't understand how you can get copy decks to work. My memory is it's very gloopy. Baz's Model Railway. There is one up, Timber's saying that's a one in GR Railway you can check out in Solihull, but James Pets, I do live streams now. Do you know, I've been doing live streams for a year. I obviously need to get this out here a bit more. This is, the first one was Dagobah Swamp, that's over there still, and it was a swamp one. But I've been doing model railways. I've been doing this model railway since April. And this week it's the exciting, let's do the top surface slate and ground finish. And because I had so much else to talk about, I didn't actually have to speed this up. I mean, sometimes I speed them up once 8 or 10 times to get the amount of stuff in. But on this one, it's only about, it's not even double time. I had to take about an hour of footage speeding up because it was about 2.5 hours. So yeah, it's getting there. Oh, welcome, Emperor's Path. Welcome to come along. Nice to see you here. He was before me on a model podcast that we went on, Model People. So it's quite exciting. Right. Okay, I'm really doing a bad spot. So James likes to spot a 009. Oh, it just blips me to the bottom and then I lose track. I'm really sorry. Okay. He was at the Gets today. I'm not quite sure. The Great Electric Train Show. I was listening to the Model People Realm show about that, so it looked like it was going to be really good. There were some nice layouts from what I hear. And James is saying, and it's a shame, there were some nice layouts. The one with the very realistic modern signalling was excellent. Collingwood. I do like a spot of signalling, says James. You can all. He's put some photos up if you want to go and look at it. The Great Electric Train Show Gets is a one that is sponsored by Hormy magazine, I think. So James is saying he had some 1:76 scale carriages printed in resin on Shapeways a few years ago. My rolling stock for the 009 here was printed from Shapeways. That's why I need to 3D print my own probably and change it so I can add some weight in. I also couldn't work out how to get metal wheels into it at all. I 3D printed wheels, and we'll talk about it then, but I left them bendy, put them in and then cured them. So John is missing great chunks tonight. The internet keeps crashing. You can catch it up. It's always later on. But thank you and have a good night. Right, I was just about to find out what they dilute their copy decks with. Water. I didn't know you could dilute copy decks with water. I always, from the smell, thought you had to use ammonia or something. Oh, that's interesting. So Bill makes most of his ground cover from Poundland car sponges run through a mincer. Colour with acrylic paints. Commercial stuff often limited in colour and expensive in large quantity. That is very true, but I've never managed to get my blender to get it fine enough that I was happy with it to use. So I've kind of moved away from it. But for clump stuff, it was perfect. But my blender just didn't go that fine. So Timber says, we go to great lengths to isolate sound with foam or cork, but PVA then connects the ballast shoulder back to the board, defeating the object of the bed. That's very true. There's definitely some spongy glues. And then Bill says, steaming the natural material retains the moisture it will be using if you'll be using glycerine as a preservative. Yeah, that's very true. And my moss went a bit brown, so obviously didn't do it completely right. I'm still on the tile and slate mix here. And I'm going to put the whole thing on dry, just a whole lot on dry. Do the whole layout and then I'm going to glue it. Because while it's dry, you can move it. Once it's got damp, it sort of starts setting because it's got cement in it. Tile grout is basically plaster. So there's a lot of titivating before I get any further. So James has used, for ballast size, taken to using digital vernier calipers to measure the individual grains and then comparing to the size of real ballast stones. That's interesting. I just go with what's commercially available and fine is the smallest. So I'll be intrigued to see what you actually think it should be. Soaking the ballast binds it into one hard lump. The only glue I know that is rubberized is copy decks. Okay, so we're still talking ballasting and copy decks. Adult dating site. And it's been hidden by Timber Surf. Thank you, Timber. So James Gouch has been enjoying watching this Bill series, especially how you explain what you've done wrong and how to fix the problems caused. Oh, I do a lot wrong. Yeah. Very happy to share those so that other people don't. It's interesting. I don't use commercial ballast glues. I do have some of the dry stuff I used once for an article, but that's about it. So Ensign 89 says, I'm just researching all that miniature stuff right now, but I just remember all the things I had to rip out again during real construction or remodelling because I messed up or found a better way. Oh, thank goodness it's not just me. I actually feel quite, the bots have obviously thought I'm worthy enough of putting enough people in there. But guys, don't go follow them. And thanks for getting rid of them. So Tim says, do you have acrylic matte medium paint? That's what you use for ballast glue. I use acrylic matte. I use matte Mod Podge now for mine. But yeah. So James, as to adding metal wheels to 3D prints, get some brass bearings and then make a hole in your 3D model to fit the size of the bearings. Make them a press fit. I bought these from Shapeways and they came with some weird spoon things, which just looked really odd. But the right wheels are out of stock at the moment, so it's kind of irrelevant. I 3D printed them because I needed it to run for the TV crew, but they didn't. I haven't got around to fixing them again. I don't think the spoked wheels are back in stock. But yeah, then I will have to work it all out. I do like the staircase on this model. That must have been taking a long time to assemble. Do you mean the thing at the back, James? The stairs at the back? They're 3D printed. If you go back a few episodes, there's one on 3D printing. That whole wall staircase is all filament printed in 3 pieces. So there we go. Yeah, so matte mediums do dry hard, as does matte Mod Podge. Tamsin, blender to chop it into coarse clumps and then put through a coffee grinder to get the finer foam flock. So I'm missing that last bit. That's what I'm missing, that coffee grinder. Aha. I don't drink coffee, so it doesn't occur to me. Frank says that he burns a lot of incense to obscure the chemical smells from 3D printers and collect the dust, which is fine and useful for ballast as drivers work. I got some ash from a wood fire once and I use that as ash. What I would say is that chemical smell from 3D printers is not good for you. It's not good for you. So instead of masking it, vent it somehow. Or shut the door on it and go in there with a mask on. I mean, I print a lot, which is why I'm now doing that, but I literally am wearing a full organic solvents mask. I also lack paint in that room, so it has a lot of external ventilation. But yeah, those fumes are not good for you. James says, for N-Gauge, the smallest commercially available size is too large. I need to use chinchilla dust, but that needs filtering. That's true. Yeah, N-Scale is quite poor. This is 009, so I get away with it. And look, still more tar grout and slate. I did a whole clinic on tar grout on Friday night, and I use it for a lot more than just this, obviously. Phil says he agrees with Frank. So Fred from Wilby Castle's here. Hello. Good to see you. And John, thank you for your kind donation. You can apparently give me money on here, so thank you so much, John. I really do appreciate that. YouTube will send it me and it will be good. It will go to cover the cost of resin. So Jolie, the vote all above, really. Yeah, it's moved actually. Cinetics was at the winning for a large period. Okay, so Tamsin is, Timber Surf is Copydex is rubber glue, so yes, it does not go hard, more like latex. I've actually got some latex rubber. I didn't think you could clean it up with water though. That's interesting. So yeah, James, they are 3D printed, those stairs at the back. That whole lot there is just one piece 3D printed. It took me a month or so to do all the modelling for this. Yeah, it really did. So what Anita said was funny, but deleted. Russ Rocking O Railroad. I use Elmer's glue for all ballasting. It's much more economical than wooden scenics and works out just as well or better. Elmer's isn't a British brand, so I just use cheap water washable glue that you get from someone like Hobby. I get it from Amazon, but the same brands, Brian Clegg or some of those cheap brands. So James, oh, you use a proper mask. I didn't. I had headaches for 2 years. I'm trying to eliminate the headaches, and I think it's the fumes. I've got great plans for the workshop, which I must start talking about. Yeah, and people get very confused. You need an organic solvent rated mask for resin VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and for spray painting any lacquers. Ensign 89, a 3D printer best lives outside. Not in the UK in the winter, I'm afraid, because it needs to be at least 25 degrees for my resin to print. And outside is, well, it's, 10, 15 overnight. It's just too cold. So mine have their own little room. It's the end of the garage that I got kitted out. But you have to vent them outside, but you can't leave them outside in this country. It's too cold. It's a shame. It is definitely the best place for them. So James originally started following for the scenery and model railways, but enjoyed watching the other videos as well. And this series is great for giving me ideas for my new 009 layout. I've really enjoyed the 009, apart from my wagons don't run well. So Muddy Marvellous, it's confused why we're collecting bits from silver birch trees. What are you doing with them? So if you look in the gutters around a silver birch tree, there are these maple leaf-like parts of the catkin. They're the spacers between the seeds. And they look like little miniature maple leaves in something like O scale. They're a little large for HO or 00. And so you collect them up and then you can put them on the ground. You can actually then also whiz them up in a blender and make them into finer pieces as leaf debris. But they're great for adding this maple style leaf into. And you can buy them as well. I've bought them from the Little Leaf Company before now, and they had them in brown, green and kind of autumn colour, I think, or two greens, perhaps a dark and a light. But they're just a cheap way of getting maple leaves in O scale or above. I'm sorry, Tim. Yeah, Tamsin. I thought it said Tamsin, who's also been commenting, but hey, it's just a T. So Polite's recently just bought Hecky latex glue. Funny thing is, it exactly smells and reacts like clear window colour or Microsoft crystal clear. Oh, that's interesting. James also uses a proper mask. Looks a bit like a gas mask for spray painting in a bench vent. I have a bench vent. I use that for spray painting. I had the recircling one, but when I went to do lacquers, because I don't have a hole in that wall, I got the builder next door, who finishes next week, to drill a hole through for me. And I've got it going up above the cabinet and venting externally. And I took the carbon filter off the back because it just clogs so quickly, it's useless. Because it couldn't get, recirculating ones cannot get rid of the vapours, the organic vapours. I take my stuff that I've used to clean it with, the kitchen roll, and I put them in a plastic bag, like a nappy bag, and not that they are for nappies, but something like that, dog poo bag, something like that, and put that in the bin so that doesn't smell. And then I keep the door shut always on there until the smell's gone. It does take a long time. Right, so but I do so Bill uses an actual mincer meat grinder with changeable output screens, and he varies the numbers of passes. That sounds very... Right, Peter asked, what about the trees and foliage in the background? I've got a whole video on scenery coming, so I'm not really going to talk about them. Basically, all that stuff came off my old layout, but I will talk about it when I'm doing that. So in the meanwhile, I'm still putting in tile grout and ground. Now, bear in mind this is sped up. One of the reasons I don't do model railways is to put out the volume of traffic that you need. These dioramas take a long time. Building up the layers, the details, they take too long to get out. So I've been sticking to smaller dioramas. But what I'll start to do mix in is some more technique videos and some more smaller dioramas with scenery, etc. on it. Tams has lost her sentence. Meat grinder for reducing the car. I knew what you meant for the bill for the car sponges, don't worry. I've got a massive amount of upholstery foam. So I've got a huge amount of foam, like the blue squishy one, for doing that with. So Russ Rocking OR, how big is your layout area? This is basically 900 by 400, I think. Yeah, 900 by 400, so 3 foot by just over 2 foot, depending which way you go. Mark, I have a maple leaf punch in different scales. I collect the leaves, especially this time of year with all the different colours. It's a good idea, but I've always found it a bit large for the scales I'll be doing. You see, Timber says school PVA is watered down PVA, steel clear. I buy it because it's thin and it's easier to mix in. So people ask me how much PVA do you put in a mix. I put it so it will go out my fine brush. I like it thinner. I use washable PVA. I like it because it dissolves easily. I used to put in a more expensive PVA and I would shake and I would shake and I would shake and it wouldn't dissolve in the water because it was more expensive. And then when I'd squeeze it out, I'd get globs of white glue coming out. The washable stuff isn't half as strong, don't get me wrong, it isn't a good PVA, but it does dissolve easily, so it actually is easier to use across scenery, especially if you're doing tar grout that already has cement in. So Tamsin's definitely her own person. Top brand PVA is $12.99 a bottle, but if you go to Builders or Toolstation Screw Kits, you can get 5 litres Builders PVA for the same price. I buy mine 5 litres at a time, I do, and I bought a double bill last time. So James, you rescued things. I've got 9 crates of greenery that came off my old layout. That's a lot of greenery to use up. I don't know what to do with 9 crates. I've nowhere to keep 9 crates. So some of it may just end up being taken somewhere for anybody who wants it, but we see. Okay. I'm not sure who Norm remembers from Mel's live streams. Oh, Tamsin. I reversed. You're the mod. Oh, that's cool. So Bill, he uses upholstery sponge to make flowers. Right, I'm going to talk a bit more about, I said earlier on that I'd talk about that in a minute, and the minute has passed. But actually, now I'm doing something on the movie, I'm going to just mention that again. It's isopropyl alcohol, a third 99% alcohol, and water. I buy this 5 litres at a time as well, in litre bottles, because the 5 litre bottles are impossible to tip out. And I have a very, very fine spray bottle. People ask me which one I use. It's never available on Amazon when I look again. So I just buy a really fine one that, you know, works. I actually bought about 20 of them. They clog out really easily. So as soon as I have sprayed this glue here, you can see it's not spraying that well. As soon as I've sprayed that glue, I go and spray water through it. Just normal water, I put it into the sink and I put a little tub of water underneath and I spray water through and then spray it till it's dry. Otherwise, that'll be clogged the next time you use it and you won't be able to use it. So I really recommend every time you do acrylic washes, I mean, now isopropyl alcohol's fine, but the acrylic washes or spray glue like this, that you wash it through. It will make a huge difference to how long you can keep your spray bottles for. And the chat box back. There we go. So on to why this is a watershed week. So a lot of things are changing for me. And one of the reasons for my poll here was because, how can I put this? I might be getting a new job this week. It's going to be in model railways though. And although there hasn't been a lot of model railway content on my channel, I was stalled on 2 fronts on it. On my main layout, now ripped out. The builders start tomorrow, so my new workshop is happening. And that I think will make a huge difference to my quality of life, my ability to cook in my own house rather than having to go around to my mum's, and my ability to get the train stuff. And the fumes will be on the downstairs and I'll be working upstairs, so I'll be separating myself. I'll be able to put in, I'm going to put an extractor fan like those pop-out ones you get for islands in kitchens, so that I'll be extracting straight out. And it's going to be really much better for me as a modeller. But I have a new job starting. And I've been mentioning this for a year. And the story starts 3 years ago when I went to Worley in 2019. And I was there with the exec producer, Pat, from Knickerbocker, the TV company doing Great Model Railway Challenge. I was walking around with him. And he was on the Gauge Master stand. And it's a stand I always go to. I have great stuff. But I wouldn't chat to the owner, Ian Fowler, so he was chatting to somebody else. And it was a couple of men, and Pat was chatting to him, and I got chatting to the guy who was one of this couple of men. And I remember thinking he had a very expensive camel coat, but he didn't look like a modeller. And he isn't a modeller, he's a businessman, he's an entrepreneur. He'd been to Miniature Wonderland and decided to build one in London. And they got in touch, but I was still being an accountant. I was still expecting a salary that was higher. I was still, just not totally available, blah, blah, blah. Lockdown happened. The talks had petered out. Didn't hear much more. And then September last year, a new guy got in touch. he'd replaced the other guy. This isn't the guy with the camel coat. He'd replaced the other one. And was like, oh yeah, would like to be involved. Met up with him. Great, got on board. I've done a lot of voluntary work for them over the last year. And they were about to get funded at Christmas, but the deal wasn't really right. And so we're now still waiting for funding. They're hoping that we'll get the funding in the next couple of weeks. And I will have a new job as the creative director, which is what I want to call myself, but the head of modelling, design, build and delivery for a miniature world model railway. I've got to go back to the movie though, having said all that. This was an absolute disaster, and I've left it in because, hey, you guys like to see the disaster. So what I'm trying to do is use gloss. I've no idea what gloss this was actually. It could be a gloss varnish. Oh, what was it? Was it gloss Mod Podge? It's not thick enough for gloss Mod Podge. Probably a gloss varnish. This gloss to represent the... so the tar grout's dried off, and it's dried, sandy looking, but there's a lot of water around in Wales, and I wanted the effect of there being wet patches. So gloss varnish makes the tar grout go darker, especially when you've used a lighter colour like this, like it does in damp patches. So I put on gloss varnish everywhere, round the edges, to show that there was dampness, which is very visible in the pictures as well. And I do that for a while. Then when it had dried, I came through and added UV resin to make puddles. Now where I went wrong, I over puddled. I put too many in. It looked naff. It was like a river had run down there, like the river runs through it. I've never seen the movie, but that's what this felt like. So just, this is a great technique, putting gloss varnish over tar grout to get glossier patches. It doesn't really dry that glossy. It dries darker, so you get that kind of look. It was the next stage that wasn't great. So anyway, back to the job. If I have a full-time job, being a full-time YouTuber is going to end, and I can't wait for that. I miss the people. I miss having teams to interact with. I miss the bounce around. This is going to be very exciting as a job. It's actually model railways, but it's like Great Model Railway Challenge type model railways. Loads of animation, loads of movement, loads of excitement really. They won't just be moving trains, they'll be moving planes. We have an airport. I'm going to have to go out to Japan, who's building it for us. We've already been designing it. I spent a lot of time talking to the Japanese, and the concept phase is done. They'll be moving cars like the Felinheli system or the Magnorail system. They'll be moving boats. There'll be loads of animation, from the pecking hens in the farmyard for the toddlers to get excited about because it's their level, or all the way through to hopefully, rowing boats moving or whatever it is. It's going to be, so you can see the slate piles. This has had a lot of slate bedding in to get those to sit on that surface, and I've done the grass in between. It's on a different video, so this ends up fast forwarded, because I was doing this section of the tar grout where I was adding the puddles right at the end as I was trying to bring the cohesive whole together. So you can see those are all 3D printed slate piles, and it took me ages to fill the straight bottoms with my lumpy slate. I would have been better to have glued them down and then put a finer amount of slate around. I needed to bring it up to the level of the ties, but I'd already done that a bit with the Daz clay, so actually they ended up a bit high because of that slate. They didn't need to be that high. So yeah, that is just gloss varnish that I'm using. I saw the bottle there. So all the corners, anywhere damp would sit, I gloss varnished. So that brings me back to the poll at the start of this. I've had 180 votes, roughly 179. It's 46 model railways, 15% sci-fi and geek, and 39% scenery techniques. And at the beginning it was about even between scenery and model railways. And the new job will have a lot of visiting model railways, good models around the world, hopefully. Well, not that far. I've got to definitely go to France, Germany and Japan, so they'll definitely be featured. And I'm angling for a couple of others. I want to go and look at all the miniature worlds to get inspiration on some of the stuff. And then I will be busy working with suppliers, talking to them about how they do things, all in foreign languages probably, which is always fun. And I'll be working through challenges, there's scenes to do. I've got to make sure everything gets delivered, that it looks weathered and real and realistic. We're going to have London, we're going to have the UK, think pastiche UK. You know, if we're doing the Cotswolds, it will be Midsummer Murders Cotswolds style, you know, just that twee Hamlet with the odd dead body. It's going to also then be around the world. We're going to have to pick the countries. There's still debate. I'd like to do the future to get in something else. It may be we do something with Warhammer. There's 2 floors of retail as well. So we'll be doing displays for the retail, and I'd like to get into them, some of the sort of wider modelling. You know, we'll have a cafe area, which again, we can do models or we could do AV or something in there. We'll just have to see. But I'd like to make sure that there's lots of different types of modelling, not just the railways upstairs, so that there's something for everybody to come to it. So there we go. When that happens though, my time to do YouTube is going to change considerably. And so the amount of modelling I do will probably decrease, but the amount of other people's modellings on my channel will go up. They still want me to do modelling for them, and they still want my YouTube channel to, I think, talk quite a bit about Pocket Planet, the name of it, and how it's gonna work. So I think it's advertising for them. Obviously, you know, half the people who are on this are into model railways. A lot of the subscribers are probably into just modelling generally. And it would be really, it's going to have some superb modelling. The suppliers we've got do some excellent work, and I'll tell you who they are when we're funded, and we'll be doing trips to them anyway. But I then need to get it all edited, which is my least favourite bit of doing videos, to be honest. I'm kind of hoping if it's for Pocket Planet that I might be able to get them to do some editing. Someone to do some editing. Someone somewhere, please take the editing away from me. It's like a pipe dream, isn't it? Someone take the editing away from me. But yeah, if it's going to go into their sort of style of stuff, then yeah, definitely. So that is going to change slightly. I'm still going to be doing videos. In some ways, you know, I'll probably put a video out saying I'm quitting YouTube for something better, because, you know, clickbait videos always do well. And I will be quitting YouTube for something better. For me, this is much better. I've enjoyed being a full-time modeller. I have not enjoyed the YouTube lifestyle. It's very lonely. It's very demoralising when your channel doesn't do well. And coming off the back of lockdown, my channel shrank. I was getting fewer views. And every video, YouTube said, your video is not appealing to your regular viewers and subscribers. Try changing your topic, or maybe some things are just not as appealing. And they said that on every video for almost 2 years. And I just, yeah, it wasn't a good time for me. So I'm looking forward to working. My new boss is really nice. I hope you're watching this. My new boss is lovely. He's called Mark. Really nice guy. But anyway, he is really nice. And I'm looking forward to having this creative outlet that I got because I was on the Great Model Railway Challenge, which I got the Great Model Railway Challenge because I did YouTube. You know, it's amazing the doors and the way things open in your life. I was an accountant before this, and I always said accounting was my first career, not my only career. I was right, it is. I'm just going to go back to the video. So I covered up a lot of the puddles with more grout to make them look smaller. If you don't like puddles, you can just put another layer of ground over the top and the puddles will shrink. And then you can go around and add some more glue and gloss varnish if you want it to get darker. But at the moment, I'm going over these with, I bought 3 or 4 grey pigments called Slate Grey because I needed some grey colours, and they're not actually that grey, desaturated grey, they're quite warm greys as you can see here. The tile grout is quite brown, and I wanted the grey for the tile areas, slate sort of areas where they've got all the slate done, and I wanted it to tie in. So what I'm doing at the moment is using the pigment to put on the lighter areas of the road. Now, because this is scenery, that's not really touched that much, I'm not sealing it that much. I might put a spray of IPA over it. Everything here can be sprayed, but the chances are, and it probably got covered later on with other things. But actually, when you want that final dusty look, I don't seal it because pigments never look as good once they've been sealed. So I just generally leave it. And you can see I've done over to the bridge, which is in the fuzzy foreground, and at the back I'd put in the road that goes off into the back. And it just adding that little dusty track where the two wheel tracks are with a bit of dirt down the middle really makes a road like this, which is tarmac, but it's in a heavily worn area with a lot of slate being dropped around. Just gives it that extra bit of realism. Along the edges, we saw Daz clay last time. Oh, this is where it all went wrong. So we saw Daz clay last time, and so there's cobbles along each side of the rails here, worn away cobbles that I'd pulled apart that I'd made from Daz clay. And in those bits where they'd kind of pulled away, there was water in the photos, like puddles. There were puddles all the way through in a lot of the photos. It's Wales. So this is jewellery resin. It's UV resin for jewellery. And you put it on, you let it sit there so it sort of steadies out a bit, and then you zap it with the UV torch. It's really simple. I haven't coloured it or anything. I'm just putting it on. And I just got it off Amazon. I've used the same brand. Dries hard enough. Does heat up when it dries, so if you put acrylic paint in it, it'll boil if you're not careful. It makes bubbles. But you can see I'm just spreading it out so it looks flat, because otherwise it's a bit beaded on the surface. Yeah, it was too much. That was the trouble. The blobs were too big. I should have put them on separately in a more defined scale-like manner. It wasn't fine enough. I was in a rush and I just did it a bit too quickly. Right. So James Pets, 9 crates, goodness me, could you auction them? Well, at the moment I can't even get to them. They're at the back end of the lounge, which I've just masking tape shut, ready for the builders. And I need to go in there and get the Gundam markers out to do the OMC Griffin that's on the side. But yeah, at some point. John Crooks, you're welcome, KM. A pack of tea bags will help keep you going. Better take it black, no milk, no sugar. Dry out the bags, make scatter and bags as folded up cloth sheets. Tarpaulins. I hate black tea. I hate normal tea. This is Chinese tea. It's pearl jasmine tea. I only really drink Chinese tea. I don't like Indian tea at all. And I don't like milk in anything. So I use, my favourite is chamomile. I drink a lot of chamomile tea as well. Chamomile tea leaves, because they're a bit lighter. I use them for like around the edge of dead grass, as dried leaves. They're brilliant. And if you wanted to use them on a tree, you know, you could then spray them green, I reckon. They're very good. Mini brushes. I bought hundreds of these off Amazon once. I actually got a pack in the US at some train show and then came back and looked for them when that ran out on Amazon. And you can get these little mini brushes, I don't know what they're for, probably for nails or something, for putting on glue. But they're brilliant for spreading out small things, and they're disposable, so I'm sorry, single-use plastics, they go in the bin. I did used to keep the edges, the like sticks, but after a while I was like, I'm not using these, so I just put them in the bin. Mert Cleaner Sweden's great. I do like Martin a lot. I put a photo of his in my book, actually. The toilet roll water made it into the book. So Bill's another vote for leaf punches. Wow. The bot struck again. Diggers on the case though. So Russ uses a small coffee grinder with real leaves. It's a good idea. O-scale, yeah, definitely. So Tamsin says, another tip for those spray bottles, cut 2 to 3 centimetres off the end of the tubing to help prevent clogs. I don't think my tubing would go to the bottom if I did that, but that's interesting. I mean, I always spray them out, so yes. Norm, yes, model railroading job, awesome. It is going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. There's no way to describe it other than that. So obviously I think Hay Bales was Mert Cleaner Sweden. I need to get a coffee grinder. I need to earn money first. So where will the model Wonder World be, says James Pets. It's on Oxford Street in London. Yeah, very exciting. Oxford Street. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Londoner. I don't really like London that much, but it's very close. I'm only in Birmingham. It's like, it's just 20-minute walk from the railway station I come in on. It's really close. So that's cool. I don't even have to get the tube or anything. It's going to be really good. Actually, I don't need to be there. We'll probably get some offices down there for a design team, but I don't actually need to be on site until they start delivering, which may well be a year away. Got to get it built first. They were hoping to open end of next year, but we'll see how it goes. Too much resin. Stop now. Sorry. So Tristan, that's a job title I never guessed existed. Way to go. What, head of modelling, design, build and delivery? Yay. So Bill's asking Russ about Americano. I'm guessing he is with a RR. That's a railroad. Norm, the buildings have been painted and weathered, looking good. Yeah, we jumped forward. We actually did the buildings painting and weathering, I think, back in the day. That's already been there, but they're now on the layout, and obviously that is quite a jump for you, and there's grass has gone on. That's a different video. I think it may be the next one. But yeah, there's definitely big changes coming on with, just, I guess because I'm theming these. Tile grout is very much the theme here. And this is showing that you can do puddles onto tile grout with just a bit of UV resin. And you can see from this angle that, they don't look too bad. There was just too much of them. They got too big and they took over. They just became too dominating when you looked at it. Puddles, yep. James, definitely do winter. I did a grey sky, and people always say they loved my grey sky. And puddles look good. I love the way puddles go from wet to darker surround to then the light dry areas. So Bill says, congrats on the job. And they need funding. They were nearly funded at Christmas, so this has been going on. So I'm caveating it with they need funding. But yeah, it will be really good. So Tim's hobby desk says, so what will you plan to do as a hobby? I took up model railway because my last hobby turned into a job. Well, my hobby's been my job for 3 years now. So it's already my job. It just doesn't pay me that much. So my hobby should be, I was going to be playing video games. But to be honest, if I have a Sunday afternoon spare, I just sit down and do a different model. It's just the way it works. And James is sympathising. He'd want a hobby that is very different to his job. I love modelling still. I tend to think of my job as the video editing and the putting the photos up on social media and, all that kind of stuff, rather than the modelling, which I really enjoy. But I've still got a plan C for when this ends, which is actually where this hanger that I waved earlier fits in. I'd like to do it'll be terrain for wargaming, because there's a big market for 3D prints in there. There's not a market for 3D printed terrain in that way in model railways, because there's too much variety. It doesn't work the same way. But there's a very clearly defined Kickstarter market. If you were to look on there for model railways, there's no markets that are easy, that aren't already saturated. And I know other people that have moved to doing the 3D printing in model railways, but I don't want to do the engineering stuff. I want to do the design stuff. So that's kind of a back burner one as well. So Norm says, sounds like a decades-long job. Awesome. No, I think it's supposed to be 2 years. It will be decades long if they get their desire to build a chain around the world, in which case it will be decades long, because we're building them around the whole world in other cities. Timber, I haven't heard that there's an alternative to Magna Rail soon to be out. Can you drop me some details on Discord or something? Because obviously I'm very excited. I saw the original Magna Rail creators one, which was slightly different to Magna Rail, and then I saw what he did with Magna Rail, and then he sold it off. And what all of the model worlds we've been to, they've beefed it up, they've changed it, they've improved it, and one lot have fed back. I think the French have fed back. This is me making the puddle smaller with more tile grout. they've fed back to Magna Rail, who are maybe incorporating it, but the Japanese just call it magnet assisted track or something now to get around the fact it's not Magna Rail, and they've redesigned it to be better. So I'll be intrigued. There's certainly loads of people have redesigned it. James Petts, London will be having the underground. I need to think, yes, but I need to think how we do it so that adults aren't crouching on the ground, because the height of the layout starts at about 1 metre so that kids can see it. And if it's the underground is below 1 metre, how would you see it? But London as a whole has a lot of challenges. And I will be putting a lot of content out about Pocket Planet and the challenges with London at some point. So yeah. Bill says, I can't remember the layout, but it was a World War II setting with a plane coming in and out of a hangar and flying around. Very impressive looking. I'm sure it was on YouTube. If you want to see the airport that kicked it all off, look at Miniature Wonderland's airport. We're getting Tokyo. They have an airport. If you look on YouTube, you can see it. We're getting them to build our airport. They've already started. They're very good. But yes, it's really impressive. It's a really impressive technique. Look, more water going on, and just sorting it out. I titivated and did this quite a bit. So Macaro's Pocket Planet Gauge Master Retail. Oh, that's so out of date, that Timber. It's even a different site to that now. They've got a new website that they'll launch when they've got funding. But until then, nobody wants to spend any money on a huge website when you've no guarantees. So Macaro Siding, just logged into the video. I agree that 3D printing is not cheating. Yes! I just bought a laser cutter for my model railroad, and the time needed to model buildings can take hours. I really want a laser cutter, and I'm still hoping that I get one eventually. I've space planned for it in the 3D print room. I just would struggle a bit with the venting, but I could put it down the back of my 3D printers that are there, probably. It's all to do about leaving space to get into the gas meter and the electric meter. If you see me with a cotton bud, I'm generally cleaning off my puddles with it or something, or using it to scuff stuff around. Wasn't 100% happy, so I've tried a lot of techniques to make the puddles look smaller here. Puddlelandia. It puddle. Yeah, they've taken over the puddles. Tim, must have been a dry day in Wales if there was just puddles. Well, you know what they say about Wales. If you can't see the mountain, it's raining. If you can see the mountain, it's about to rain. Yeah, the plan, it's not working. It shouldn't be up yet. It's going to wait till it gets funding, and then we need to. So until you've got funding, you're asking people to do things voluntarily a lot of the time. And I've put a lot of hours in. I mean, a lot of hours. And it has really taken my drive from YouTube, because I knew it was going to be there. And it's just taken a year. I mean, they got in touch with me last September, so it's over a year now to get the funding. And it takes time. So Ratty Rex still uses the grinder his parents used for his Farley's rusks. Ooh, yeah. I didn't know you had to grind Farley's rusks. I don't remember them, not having had kids. So James says, Oxford Street, interesting. The transformation of retail economics is intriguing. I'd always wondered whether disused department stores might one day be turned into model railway. They did look at one of the department stores. The point with this one is it's actually the first floor above all the retail that's the exhibition space, and then we've got 2 floors of retail that were previously shops. Ronnie, dream jobs are hard to find. Great work, thank you. I feel like I've been waiting for this for a long time. Timo Blue Tree Models, late as usual. Better late than never. That's the way to go. So Tim, you've probably missed this by the time I get here, but good night. Russ is definitely from across the pond. Right, Paul on Fire. I'm looking to get a resin printer, but I'm worried about how much odour it gives off. Would it be better to print in the garage, or would it be okay in the house? Is your garage heated? You need to have resin really about 20-25 degrees. And if it's not 20-25 degrees, it sometimes just doesn't print as well. So I ended up putting mine in the garage finishing it off like a room and putting insulation in. Didn't put any in the floor though. The guy who did it was a roofing carpenter. He was over lockdown, he was unemployed, so he came and did it for me. He was one of my neighbour's sons. And he didn't put enough insulation, I think, under the floor. So that'd be interesting. It's getting hard to keep it at 25 degrees now. So I've got a little space heater, but they're expensive. Well, my smart meter tells me how expensive it is, and I'm like, ooh! So often I run the 2 FDM printers, and that heats it up quite nicely. But I wouldn't put it in your house unless it's a room you're not using a lot. And I would have an external vent for it. And everyone says it's actually, when you've got it, if you put one of the air purifiers that Elegoo have inside an Elegoo, they don't really smell much when you're printing. My whale really smells. So it depends on the brand whether you get a lot of pushing out of the resin during printing, or whether it's actually, everyone says it's the wash and cure, and I can agree with that because the IPA really honks as well. And then you've got IPA dissolved resin in your lungs, and yeah, so I would definitely be more careful now than I was at the beginning when I started. Hi Stephen, welcome to Stephen from Scotland. Oh yeah, and look, there goes timber. You might need to put it in an enclosure. James Pets, for the underground, there are lots of places where the underground is above ground, but then it's not an underground, it's an overground. Yeah, I know. London is just a whole host of issues, which I'll talk about at some other point actually, but not tonight. It's a can of worms about the size of buildings in London. Why do I need to be worried about running a laser cutter near a resin printer? Timo Blue Tree Models. Okay, so so Stephen's been working on the tar plant broke down. Oh bless. I had my road retard 2 weeks ago. It's fascinating. I stood there for an hour watching the men work. It was brilliant. It was wonderful to watch, and they did such an amazing job. And they didn't quite have enough tar. They'd put that's the UV curing chamber to make sure it's really set. The torch is okay, but it's a bit pasty. So I normally get my UV curing chamber out and just use it as a little bit extra oomph. But that wasn't really cutting it over there, so I went and kind of held it in spot. Whoops, and knocked that over. It's not glued in, don't worry. Right. But anyway, good to have you with us, Stephen. Right, so John's off. Dinorwic is looking great. I'll watch the rest later and must go on. Keep well till next time. Thanks, John, and you. Take care. Have a good night. Raphael, fantastic to hear about your new and super exciting job. All the very best for you and the team. Thank you. We just need funding. So I need you all to pray for funding this week. So Mark Warren from ScaleMark, just bought a laser cutter engraver, although I've yet to unbox it yet. It'd be great to make my own plaques for my dioramas. Watch this space, something new to learn. Yep, always something new to learn. And I really, which one did you get? You know, I looked at Glowforge, but it has to go through a cloud. And then Crycut brought out their thing where you had to pay briefly till they rode back for the cloud usage. And it seemed like I didn't want to be tied in. Beambox seemed like the best option because the shipping for the Glowforge was the same price as the printer. It was like $1,000 for the printer and $1,000 for shipping. So this is me going, oh, no, my puddles are too big. So I'm now tar grouting them in to make them smaller. Just extra tar grout to make them smaller. So it isn't like the river run through it. James, I approve of funding too. Timo, when I went to insure, two underwriters said they would call the fire brigade, wouldn't insure me until separate rooms. The real issue was the IPA vapours being near a flame. I don't have any IPA vapours in my 3D print room. IPA vapours are in my wash and cure station, which is in a separate room. My 3D resin printers are in their own room. So if you were to walk through my kitchen where I currently model, I've got a utility room. And as you go into it, on the left there's an airbrush booth, there's a sink, and then there's my wash and cure station. Then there's a door, and then there's my 6-foot end of the garage that was left, because this is in the old garage. And I've got 4 resin printers and 2 filament printers in there, but they're not in the same room as the IPA. So yeah. So Andy, your live chat and your new layout look really interesting. I've had my even moved a bit because my flaming internet has been going down. Personally, I prefer my YouTube videos. Yeah, YouTube videos I do as well, and this will end up in a YouTube video. So I did plan to do 9 techniques coming out of the 5 terabytes of video I have for this, and there will be a final YouTube video, but it will just be one video on how I did the layout, you know, and it will be on the main channel, which this is on actually. But the trouble with that is you can't get into the details. So the live stream enables people to ask me questions and to chat, and live streams are just a very different way of doing YouTube. I don't listen to many live streams live, but there's 3 or 4 that I listen to when I'm modelling and I have them going on in the background. I tend to listen to podcasts on Spotify instead. But yeah, I appreciate everyone has different things that they prefer. And that's why I put a variety out, because some people love the chat and some people prefer just to watch a video. So Tamsin, the YT channel My Tech Fun has reviewed quite a few open style laser engraver cutters. No, I want the box type, which vent externally. I want it to be boxed and vented externally. I don't want the fumes in there with the resin and the filament as well. Hot work permit. Yeah, I remember hot work permits not being filled at work when I worked at university, and the entire of Aston University having to come out of its building, which was the largest brick built building in Europe when it was built, because someone set an alarm off. They're fun. Even using IPA to clean near the laser had them say no. Why did your insurer even know you'd got a laser cutter? When I rang up and asked about my 3D printers for a business, I couldn't get business insurance anywhere because most of my income is from the US through books and the royalties I had in 1 year, and I wasn't. So most of my income came from the US 1 year, and it was the year I was working for insurance, and no one would insure me because I had US income. Like, if you have US income, nobody will insure you anyway. So I spoke to my house insurers, and they weren't bothered about 3D printers at all. Laser cutters, it never occurred to me that my insurers, I mean, they're not expensive enough to add on to the insurance. That's a really interesting thing. Where do you live, by the way? You said Fire Brigade, so I'm going to guess you're in the UK. So Stephen moves into the new house on the 28th of October. Not sure if it's forever home, might move again. Everything is insane at the moment. It is hard to do railways when you're moving house all the time. So the laser cutters do flare up, and because of the venting and fans, it does draw everything in. I have 3 lasers and 18 resins with 4 wash and cures. Are they all in the same room? Yeah. See, I can't get business insurance. I cannot get business insurance. So they're all on my house insurance because I've got US income. You try getting any insurer to touch you when you've got US income. And they're not going to sue me, which is why they don't want to touch the US or Canada. They're not going to sue me because it's royalties. They're not paying me directly for anything. But it just happened, my income dropped on everything except the US. And as soon as I had $10 of US income, they wouldn't insure my business at all. Really frustrating. Oh, Worcester. I used to work there. So James says laser cutters are a big fire risk. You need to supervise them constantly and have a fire extinguisher. I'm going back to what I said at the beginning. I have space for it. I'm not entirely sure I want one. And the reason that I'm not entirely sure I want one is A, space, because they are big, and I would be getting like a desktop size one, so it wouldn't do the really big stuff. But B, what I see myself doing is stuff that other people can do. And other people don't have laser cutters, they're not that common. And unlike 3D printers, which are becoming more and more common, or you can get someone else to 3D print for you, it becomes quite hard to say to people, oh, look, here's one I made, and I used a laser cutter. And also, I would eventually, when this job finishes, I'll probably go into 3D print design rather than YouTubing for my 3rd or 4th career by this point, because there is a market for 3D print design that is more steady than YouTube. And if I did that, I wouldn't want to do laser cut because I'd want to be always spending my design time doing stuff for 3D printers that I could sell. So part of me is going, I think the laser cutter moment has passed in my life, and I would want to be spending that design time designing for 3D printing. So yeah. So Peter, thanks for the great live stream tonight. I really enjoyed it. The progress on Port Dinorwic looks great. It really has come together, and you can see how the tile grout beds in. At the moment, there's just loads of dilute matte Mod Podge all over the new tile grout, letting it just settle down a bit. But I'm gonna guess that the videos, are we at the end? It hasn't moved for a while. Oh no, we're still going. Still going. Okay, so when you say you're on my photo stream, Timo, drop me a message and I can intro to mine. I have some USA income. What do you mean by photo stream? Do you mean Facebook, Instagram, or photo stream? I think of Flickr for some reason. Anyway, let me know which one that is, please. Because yes, I would be interested. Scottish Government made interlinked smoke alarms a legal requirement here. Insurers are asking about that, so they can void your insurance if you don't have them. I had an extension, so all of my smoke alarms in the kitchen, hall and landing are on the electric circuit with a 9-volt battery backup. I'm guessing as I'm about to have a new extension, they'll all get checked and sorted. Photo share Apple, of course. Yes. Sorry, Tim. Yes, I catch up now. I hadn't put the two together. That's perfect. Yeah, I'll drop you a whatever. I mean, at the moment, I haven't got enough income coming in, and I'm not really doing anything that needs insurance, ironically enough, now. If I go back into full-time employment, but I've still got the YouTube, and yeah, it's just one of those things. I wouldn't have minded having all my computers and the 3D printers that were bought through the business on the business insurance. Bills in Scotland, obviously. Yeah, that's how you know what the Scottish Government want. Yeah. So anyway, we're getting near the end of this particular section, so I just wanted to sum up what I learned from doing this. 1, don't over puddle. Restraint is important, but if you do over puddle or have a problem with any of your scenery, bear in mind you can do exactly what I've done here. It just takes a lot of time. You can redo it. You can generally, with scenery, even with embedded track like this, just add another thin layer of ground over the top and start again. And I ended up with a lot fewer puddles having done this, and I felt like it was a better result. So you can definitely do it. It just takes time, and it's worth taking the time, because just cleaning my puddles so they're glossy before I glue everything. It's worth taking the time because it's the small details like these that give realism to a model. It's the layers of different colours of tile grout, some darker, some lighter. It's the layers of different textures of tile grout and slate. It's all of that that brings realism into your modelling. What's going on at the end with the 3 openings Bill Forrest asked? It goes into the fiddle yards. So when you look at it, normally you're looking at it side on, you're looking at this angle, so they're not so obvious. And all my fiddle yards are just painted black. You saw them in the first video when I did track laying and bench work and that. But this is what it looks like now. You can see this final brilliant bit of camera work there. That's what my puddles and this lot ended up looking like when they'd settled in and I bedded them down. And that slate at the front was still a disaster. So that was it really. That was the tile grout and slate episode with a lot of time goes into these. And although I've sped all these up, I don't think people realise when you do YouTube videos just how long some of the things. I was watching one today and it blew my mind. It was Ray Studio. I built an electric Gundam mini world or something. And the effort that he put into it, the absolute effort. I could see he said it took 180 days, so it was half a year. I can see the work that went in there because I do similar work, and you know how long it takes. Nope, they're not tunnel entrances, Bill. They are just exits to fill the yard. When you're side on, they just sort of blend in a little bit. There's a little bit of a rebate at the front, so they're less visible when you're sort of looking from the front, but you're looking down the layout in a view that you can't really do that easily mostly. So yeah, thank you, Tim. Thank you. And Bill says impressive. A fine episode it was too, says Norm. Thank you. Thanks, guys. So Stephen Cameron says he really enjoyed the Colossus video, had a Derek Meddings van. I only know Chris Meddings. I don't know Derek Meddings. I'm going to have to look him up. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Colossus, actually. It was a great 3D print design. And I enjoyed just painting and weathering something. And then I put a very simple base on it. So I really enjoyed that. And that's the kind of modelling I do enjoy doing because it is quite easy. So yeah, but this was done in such a rush that I haven't really put it out on social media that much. And I haven't got any photos of it really because I did it in such a rush. Well, the back of my phone and my iCloud's trashed at the moment. So yeah. So anyway, in the last 3 minutes, let's just finish off chat. Samuel says, thanks for a great live stream. Good luck with your new endeavours. It'll be interesting to see all of the new things if you're able to share some of it. Definitely we're going to be sharing it. We're definitely going to be doing that. So Bill's been working on a 1 to 50 landfill site diorama for 3 years. Well, that's definitely a long time. Thanks Tamsin for hanging out this evening. I do appreciate it. And Norm, thank you again to Norm, Digger and Timber for being my moderators. They come on every month and do it. It's really brilliant that they're always around. I appreciate having them, and I need to say it publicly. And I probably should also at this point, and I don't do this enough, thank my patrons and YouTube channel members who actually support me. I know Digger's on there, and they, they have helped with YouTube. Doesn't earn that much, and the patrons and channel members have been really, really good. So I do appreciate them. So Derek Meddings was Jerry Anderson's SFX man. I'd love to do a Tracy Island. That'd be good. Yeah, Norm, the new job is very exciting. Thanks, Delph72. Alan, Kathy, did you finally solve the issue you had plugging the 2 detachable baseboards together? Did you go with magnets in the end? Yeah, I think that was in the first video. Magnets, steel plate on one side, magnet on the other, so the polarity's not an issue. And then I put O-ring terminals on the back. My electrics go through them. So when they bolt together on the magnets, the electric also goes through. But yeah, thanks Tim. Definitely going to talk about insurance. That's great. It's rather large, says Bill. Yes, I bet it is at that size. 150. Thanks Ratty. Thanks for coming along. And don't forget to like, subscribe, do the bell button. You know, that YouTubey stuff. Like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it is, Monique. I'm really grateful for them. Muddy Marvellous. I hope funding goes ahead. As high interest rates will have changed the business model. Sounds a great idea. I don't know whether they will have or not. I don't think it's necessarily structured like that. But hey, that's out of my league. I'm an accountant, but I'm leaving it to them. Thanks, Emperor's Path. Great to have you on here. Jaw21. See you in November. Oh, yeah. I am definitely going to Worley in November, so hopefully catch up with you. But if I don't know what you look like, bear in mind you're just Jaw21 on there, so you'll have to introduce yourself, please. And oh, and Bill, thank you. If it's the first live stream, thoroughly enjoyed it. That's brilliant. That's good to know. And Scale Models, thank you for all your support. You do comment on everything, so that's great. And James Petts approves of Worley. Well, I think that says it all. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody. See you next time. Second Sunday of the month.